Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. This limited release show features the stories of the 2020 contestants of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's athletic competition, NBC's The Titan Games. Now, here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 12 of the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. In the KMF Collective Studio with me today, I have Titan Games athlete, two-time CrossFit Games athlete, and Doctor of Physical Therapy, Kelly Stone. How are you doing, Kelly?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us today.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited.
Me too, Kelly. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be super fun. And so, Kelly, to get to know your background a little bit, I wonder, where did you grow up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
Yeah, so I grew up in Lakewood, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver. I started athletics at a pretty early age. Competitive gymnastics, I started around age 4, and then competitive swimming around age 6. So, a lot of my childhood was spent, kind of competing in those two sports, and it really shaped, pretty much all of my life, through my childhood up into high school and college, and kind of everything up until this point, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems that way, that sports really, you took them and ran with them, and it led you to the incredible career in many facets that you have today, both in CrossFit and, of course, too, as a doctor of physical therapy. And so, Kelly, growing up, both doing swimming and gymnastics, as you started to get older and maybe start to look to college, was there maybe one you wanted to continue on and see how far you could take that sport, or in both? Or did you decide that maybe pursuing those further was not something you wanted to do?
Yeah, so, most of my childhood, I spent focusing primarily on gymnastics. That was, very early, within a few years of starting. I was training 4 to 5 hours a day,
Wow.
5 to 6 days a week. When I got into middle school, I, was part of a program where we would go to gymnastics for like 2.5 hours in the morning. We would go to class for like 4 core classes and then come back to practice in the afternoon. And I had a similar type schedule in high school where, we basically had it arranged where I never did, gym classes or kind of extra electives. I was just done by 12 o'clock and would go to gymnastics practice. And so that all being said, I absolutely loved it in that phase of my life, and transitioned into high school and, was able to be a state champion gymnast on 2 events in high school. And I won 2 state championships on teams. So for me, I think I just got to the point where I realized that, I had kind of done the gymnastics thing. Like, I had enjoyed it. I accomplished what I wanted to, but I was just starting to kind of, just burn out a little bit. I was just ready to be done, just kind of end that phase. And so for me, though, I had never really dedicated that much time and energy into swimming, like by no means as much as I had gymnastics. So, I kind of thought, hey, like, I wonder, if I'm already pretty good at swimming, swimming, relatively speaking, not very much. Like, I wonder what would happen if I actually, dedicated my focus just to that. And so, honestly, one of the things that I'm most proud of in my life is that I really had to fight my way onto the Division I swim team that I swam for in college. So I ended up going to the University of San Diego, swam 4 years. But, that wasn't like an easy road to get there. Like, I really had to kind of market myself to coaches and basically say, hey, these are my times. I realize they may not be, what you're, typically looking for, but you've got to realize this is where I'm at, having never just focused on swimming. And, I had several coaches that kind of blew me off. And, but, was fortunate that I found a coach in San Diego who, saw the potential in me and kind of gave me that opportunity. So yeah, I was, really excited just to kind of move on to that phase, really dedicate my time to swimming, and had a great 4 years with them.
And that's amazing that you were able to make that pivot. Of course, you said you did swimming, but never to the capacity that you had done gymnastics. And so then deciding, okay, I want to see now how far I can take this swimming career. And so Kelly, then, like you said, when you got burnt out on gymnastics and then started to make that transition into swimming, what made you decide that you wanted to try swimming and see if you could continue on with that to the collegiate level versus maybe just taking a break from sports altogether after gymnastics?
Yeah, I think it was kind of a seamless transition. Like I said, I did both sports all through high school and, was pretty successful in both. But I think I made that decision around my junior year and just said, I really want to finish, high school gymnastics, but I don't think I have another 4 years in me.
Yeah.
But it was just that itch in the back of my head of like, wow, I really think I could do this. And I think that, I have just identified as an athlete my entire life. So, I always thought like that I would compete in some level, in something in college. And so, I just thought, hey, what a great opportunity, to see if I can do this and, to automatically give me, a group of friends that, I can connect with and, give me that kind of structure that I just tend to like in my life in general. And so, it wasn't like I, quit gymnastics at any point and then, decided to switch gears. It was all these moving parts all at the same time. Like I finished, my whole season, my senior year of gymnastics, and was swimming also, and then, left in the fall for swimming. So there really was no break, but I just don't even think it ever popped in my head to not at least try, to not at least do one of them.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Like you had that chance to continue on to the collegiate level. So why not try in whatever capacity that was for sports? And so seeing, okay, I'm burnt out on gymnastics. Well, I've done swimming my whole life too. So let's see how far I can take this now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Kelly, then having that incredible gymnastics career and then being able to really, that's amazing that you marketed yourself, even though you didn't have a strong as a, I guess, resume with swimming, you had still done it. And I had these times, even though I didn't focus all my time on it, let's see what I can do when I do focus all my time on it. And so then continuing on your swimming into college, when did CrossFit start to come into your life?
Yeah, so CrossFit was actually later on. So like I said, I swam 4 years in college. I will say that my strength and conditioning coaches in college were, several of them did CrossFit. So, when I say like, hey, I didn't start CrossFit until 2016, it's kind of a loaded statement because people have to realize that I, grew up with 14 years of gymnastics experience, which is a huge component of CrossFit.
Right.
And then that kind of metabolic style of conditioning that we see in CrossFit was something that I was pretty familiar with. It was more just that I had never, stepped foot in an actual CrossFit gym. I had never done, Olympic lifting and heavier squats and things like that. But in terms of like conditioning style, that was something that I was exposed to in college. But so after I graduated undergrad and then was pursuing my doctorate in physical therapy at the University of Florida, I actually dabbled briefly in some bodybuilding competitions. So I competed in figure. It's not something that I usually spend too much time talking about because it was an interesting experience. Very eye-opening. I learned a lot. Definitely don't regret it. But, I think at that point in my life, I was kind of having that identity crisis of like, I've always been an athlete. I need something competitive. And so my roommate at the time had done a couple shows. So, we just decided, hey, let's do this together and just kind of see what can happen. And, very cool experience. But I quickly realized it just wasn't the sport for me. I wanted to feel like I was more in control of the results and that the energy that I put in really mattered. And ultimately, and I think in a sport like bodybuilding, it comes down to like what genetics you have and what the judges subjectively think about you and what they're looking for. I don't think it's necessarily always in your hands. And, the hardest worker in the room doesn't necessarily win. There's a lot of extraneous factors. So I think for me, it just, that coupled with the extreme nutritional, things that I had to do, it just wasn't a sustainable kind of positive experience for me overall. But it's kind of funny. It was kind of my lead into CrossFit because while I was competing or while I was doing a clinical rotation in Florida, I had been training at a gym briefly, and there was a CrossFit gym attached to it. And so the coach had kind of seen me working out a few times and had kept, bothering me, oh, come work out in CrossFit, you'll be great. And, I kind of was just blowing him off. And I think in my head, I had this, like, I'm a PT student and CrossFit is dangerous, like that whole mentality.
Yeah.
But anyways, at some point, he basically is like, oh, I'm hosting this CrossFit competition this weekend at the beach. Like, you should come. I'll pay your entry, and if you happen to win, we'll split the earnings. And then if you don't like it, I'll leave you alone after this. And so I'm a very competitive person, which I'm sure everyone on this Titan Games is. So I'm like, okay, like, whatever. Let's just go and do it. And that was it. Like, I did that one-day competition, ended up winning, absolutely loved it. And yeah, haven't really looked back ever since.
You drank that Kool-Aid and just went all in.
Yeah, pretty much.
Love it. I love that. And I love that too, that you, like you said, you were, because of your profession, you were kind of thinking about the negatives of CrossFit, but then once you did it, you were sold on it. And so then Kelly, kind of looking then to, in tandem with your athlete profession on the side, doing your, being a doctor of physical therapy too. So what made you want to become a physical therapist?
Yeah, so to be honest, for most of my life, I thought I was going to go to medical school. That was kind of always my plan. I'm a very, kind of organized type A type person generally. So, it just seemed like, I always like sciences and math, and it just seemed like the logical step. Like, oh, you're just going to go to college and then you're going to go to medical school. And so when I was an undergrad, I had been, spending time volunteering in a couple different hospitals and shadowing different physicians and surgeons. And I just got to this point where I realized, number one, I don't really like hospitals. So that was probably red flag number one. But kind of the bigger piece for me was I felt like a lot of the doctors I spent time with didn't really get to spend a lot of quality time with their patients. Like, it was just, the nature of what they were doing. They were so busy and rushed. And I just, for some reason, it just didn't sit well with me. Like, I felt like I wanted to still be in medicine, but to be on the more holistic side of it. I didn't want to just look to, feed people medication instead of getting to the root of the cause. I wanted to keep people from having to get surgery, not necessarily offering that as the first option. And so, after this, what I now call my quarter life crisis moment, I, just started looking into other options and just realized that physical therapy would be a little bit of a better fit for me. Like, give me that opportunity to, pursue an advanced degree, to feel like I'm, meeting that goal and pushing myself academically, but also to end up in a career where, I can build relationships with my patients and feel like I'm making a positive impact in terms of like overall health and not some of those kind of, I don't know, more medically driven avenues, I guess. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, being driven by that, having that passion, and then it really aligns well with, of course, your pursuit of taking your athletic career to that next level too, from high school to college, and then beyond that too.
Absolutely.
And so Kelly, then, so discovering CrossFit and then going all in there in tandem with being a doctor of physical therapy, after you did that first competition, and then you decided, okay, I love this. When did you decide that or how did it come about, I guess, that you wanted to see how far you could take specifically your CrossFit career and ultimately lead you to the CrossFit Games?
Yeah, so, like I said, it was kind of the tad end of grad school that I started jumping into CrossFit. And, I think I knew pretty quickly that it was like my next athletic challenge. I, started at a gym in Florida and, it was, just seemed like every gym that I walked into, and I was bouncing around a little bit just with my clinical rotations my final year, but every gym that I went into, I was just like awestruck with the community of people and how supportive and positive everyone was, how, people from very different backgrounds and abilities and skill levels would all just come together to work out together. And it was such a positive experience. So, I think that was kind of huge and just kind of that buy-in. But I think it really only took me a few months to realize, hey, I'm pretty dang good at this already, just kind of naturally with my background. And, I just decided like, hey, I think I could really do this. And so, like I said, I started, the end of 2016, graduated that following April. And so even like a few months before graduation, I had decided I was moving back to Denver. Mm-hmm. And I started just kind of looking into gyms in the area, where are there good competitive gyms, who's kind of making a splash, where has good girls to train with.
Yeah.
And I kind of, watching some of the regionals results for CrossFit, stumbled upon a gym called CrossFit Omnia. And so they, that year in 2017, qualified for regionals for the first time. I moved back to Denver right after that and kind of got to meet everybody. And then a few months later, they qualified for the CrossFit Games for the first time. And I just on a whim flew out to California to watch them. And I remember this like moment that I'm standing there in this arena watching them compete, in this huge, stadium with thousands and thousands of people. And I just decided right then and there, I'm going to be on that team next year. Like I'm going to earn my spot.
Yeah.
And that's, exactly what I did. It just, once I kind of set those goals, it just kind of changes my mindset and I'm just ready to roll. I do what it takes, and make those adjustments and figure out what I need to kind of get to those goals or as close as possible, close as I can as possible.
I love that. I mean, and that really is that first step. You see what you want to be or you see what you want to do. You say, I'm going to do that. And then you start to take steps towards that goal. You start to take those little steps, daily, hourly, whatever it is, in pursuit of that overall ultimate goal that you set for yourself.
Yep.
So Kelly, having that incredible career leading up to then deciding I'm going to go to the CrossFit Games, I'm going to see where I can take this career. How then did becoming a contestant on this season of the Titan Games kind of come into your radar?
Yeah, so, I've spent the last few years, like I said, kind of competing in CrossFit and, it's something that I truly love and, I'm kind of hoping. I've been a couple years on a team and, I'm currently trying to compete as an individual, but I did watch the first season of the Titan Games and, watching it, I was like, man, like I really like this show. Like I have always, enjoyed kind of reality television competition type shows. I watch all the American Ninja Warriors and things like that, but this is the first one where I felt like, hey, this is my show. Like I can do this. Like I didn't look at it like I looked at American Ninja Warrior, like, wow, those people are impressive, but that's not really my thing. Like this one, I was like, I could totally do this. And I guess I was fortunate because, I got an email from somebody on the production team back in the fall just saying, hey, we found you and we think you'd be great for the show. Like we encourage you to apply and kind of here's the process. And it just seemed like, I don't know if I would like to think that I would have applied regardless, but just kind of getting that little bit of a kick was like, wow, I should definitely do this. So, kind of started thinking about that and thinking about, what's my kind of big motivation for doing this? And, obviously part of it is that, just pursuing a new athletic challenge and, pushing myself, to do something new and completely out of my comfort zone. But I think, another piece that, really came into play and something that they really focus on the show is that I actually, as a PT, my primary job is working with special needs kids. So it's a very unique kind of subset of PT that I think a lot of people aren't super familiar with. So yeah. I get to go into people's, homes. I see a lot of 0 to 3-year-olds, a lot of, just early development. And I get to work with these kids and these families in their home environment to accomplish functional skills and do things, that maybe they never thought was possible. And so, it kind of just seemed to me like I had this realization like, wow, like I not only can I, pursue this in an effort to do something cool for myself, but like how cool would it be to highlight some of these kids in my story and to be able to have them sitting at home watching their PT try something crazy, while they're sitting at home watching. So, I figured at the end of the day, if it didn't happen, that's all right, but at least I'm going to go and try. And hey, if I can make it on the show, like, that's something that I hope that they'll be proud of and maybe encourage them at some point in their lives to try something completely new and out of their comfort zone. So that was kind of my big motivation for doing it.
I love that so much. It's so far beyond yourself and what you want to accomplish. Of course, it was something you saw and you sought to achieve, but it was not just for you at all. It was for the kids that you get to work with every day, and being that role model, being that person that you would look up to. You wanted to be that for them, and that really is such an incredible motivator. For that. And so Kelly, then for you, of course, then having, of course, turning out that you would become a contestant on the Titan Games, which is amazing, and having that opportunity when the producers did reach out to you, and knowing too that, of course, the Titan Games was created by The Rock. I wonder, do you remember the first time that you actually became aware of who The Rock was, and maybe why then of course, you said the Titan Games was something that appealed to you because you felt you could do that, and that was something that really piqued your interest, but maybe a reason why The Rock specifically might have inspired you, but moreover, just maybe when you became aware of him and who he was.
Yeah, I can't remember a specific moment, but he's definitely been on my radar for a long time. I've seen a lot of his movies, and, after, I was kind of looking more into the show, reading more about his past and his background. I think the most, amazing thing about him is that, he really came from a very humble beginning, and he has earned and worked hard for everything that he has. And to me, that is so much more defining than somebody who is just kind of handed something in their life. So, I really respect the fact that he kind of is a self-made man that has, built himself up. He very clearly has a strong relationship with his family and his 3 daughters, and he does so many positive things for those around him. So, not only is he just very talented, he always seemed like such a genuine and, really inspiring person that just like is out there to kind of do good and entertain and, just make the most of the opportunities that he has. So yeah, it's hard not to look at him and, just go, wow, like what a cool opportunity to, be on a show that, is in his name and kind of stands for what he believes in, and hopefully have the opportunity to meet him. Like, how cool is that?
Absolutely. And I mean, you're right. Yeah. Like you said, being inspired by the fact that he's a self-made man, and then being aligned and on a similar mission, wanting to help others like what you're doing, encourage others, and doing something not just for yourself, but for the legacy that you can leave, and for how to be a model for the kids that you get to work with. And so being a part of a show that is on that similar mission. And so then Kelly, in that same vein, I mean, having the experience that you had on the Titan Games and interacting with the people who had all these incredible stories, overcoming different obstacles that you had the chance to interact with when you were on this season, what would you say is your definition of a Titan?
That's a good question. I would say that a Titan is, a symbol of power, strength, and determination. Someone who goes after their goals, faces obstacles head on, and fights with everything they have. That's kind of what a Titan means to me.
That's beautiful. That was very succinct. It's almost like you knew exactly what you were going to say. That was great. But truly, that's a symbol of power, strength, and determination. That's you. And like you said, going after those goals, that is the trend in your story. And I think you could say that about an athlete, right? It's something that is ingrained within you at a young age, how to set goals, how to know what you want to achieve, and how to make those steps to get there. But then it's another thing to have that carry over into all areas of your life. So like you did, being a gymnast and a swimmer, carrying that over into CrossFit, but then moreover, expanding it into areas that were non-athlete related. So when you became a doctor of physical therapy, going to grad school and having to continue on that path, and that's got to be a long and arduous path. And then past that, working with kids and how you create that discipline for yourself to help people further their own best self.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you kind of touched on a important point and something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and that's, habits. That kind of, you said it's ingrained in me, and I would absolutely agree. In the days of social media now, I've spent, a lot of time recently, especially with quarantine, trying to, make my presence a little bit more known, but,
Yeah.
More so in that vein of like trying to help people, live healthier and more balanced lives. And, a question that I get often is like, how do you stay motivated? And, how do you keep working out even though it's quarantine and, everything's different? And, it's honestly, for me, it's so second nature at this point, number one, where it's like, it's a habit for me. Like it's no different for me than going to work every day or taking a shower or going grocery shopping. Like exercising and fitness and health is just who I am. And then beyond that, I genuinely love it, which helps, if you can find something that you truly enjoy doing every day. I think that's, whether that's work, fitness, nutrition, if you enjoy the process and you enjoy what you're doing, I think that's so, so important and valuable. And then, beyond that, the third component is goal setting. Like if you're just doing something just for the sake of doing it, it may not stick long term. But if you say, hey, these are my short-term goals and these are my long-term goals, and this is what I have to do to achieve those, it seems, at least for me, much easier to stay on track because you have that focus and that mentality, and you attack day after day to kind of get a little bit closer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think hitting on that word habit, that's such a key word, because you're right. It's those habits and that discipline that you developed long ago. And it's the way you approach situations and how you develop those certain things that you want to carry with you day in and day out. And like you said, it's second nature to you. So even though being in quarantine and being isolated, having that motivation, even on the days that you lack the motivation, you can rely on the discipline that you had in order to develop that habit, to even begin to work out every day, to shower every day, to do whatever it is every single day.
Yeah.
You can rely on the discipline. And so Kelly, spinning off of that, I just wonder, because this is actually something I was thinking about today, about, you're right, developing habits and then relying on the discipline when the habit is not there, or you feel like it's not there because you're lacking the motivation. During this time, specifically with quarantine and everything going on, were there days that it was hard for you to maybe get a workout in, or maybe not get a workout in because being such an avid CrossFitter, but maybe there's something that you typically do every single day, but on a couple of days or maybe for a week, it was really challenging for you to motivate yourself to get going? And how did you kind of get over that hump, get over that obstacle, to really kind of introduce that habit back into your routine?
Yeah. So, I think, that's something that is probably true for all of us in this time. Something's got to give,
Yeah.
And for me, fortunately, like we've talked about, that kind of, the fitness component and even the kind of healthy eating, nutrition component, they're so ingrained in me and something that I get so much value from, that those really haven't faltered for me. Like I may have days where I'm quote unquote less motivated than normal, but it doesn't really cross my mind to say, hey, I'm just not going to work out this week. Like that, it's just like not an option in my brain and not something that I allow myself.
Yeah.
And I get so much, value mentally and physically, as soon as I get started and when I'm done, that just reinforces how critical those things are to me. But I will say that my probably thing that I've struggled with most is probably my sleep schedule, to be honest. Like, I'm not naturally an early morning person, and, when all of a sudden schedules change and I don't need to be anywhere early anymore, I just noticed for a while that my days were starting to shift, and, I'm staying up later and I'm getting up later in the morning and I'm not as productive. And, I definitely, have kind of given myself some grace, and I don't, I'm not too hard on myself. If I'm not perfect in that kind of aspect, I'm still getting everything done that I need to. But as I've tried to, slowly reverse out of that and get back into my previous habits, because, I feel a little bit better when I, get up a little bit earlier and I kind of get my day started and start off with a productive morning. So, that for me has probably, been the most challenging. But again, it's, figuring out what's the most important things to be focusing on at any given time. And then, just taking those steps to make those steps forward. So, I wasn't going to say, hey, I'm going to get up 3 hours earlier tomorrow. Hey, maybe I'm going to get up 30 minutes earlier tomorrow, and then do that for a little bit. And then, hey, maybe we'll push it to 45. And, I think that again applies to so many things in life. Like we need to, take those small manageable steps. And then once you can do that consistently, then you keep pushing it a little bit further. versus trying to do something way out of the ordinary, something you're totally not used to, and then just kind of burning out or breaking down somewhere along the line.
Right. And I love what you said, being one, having grace with yourself, but two, taking those manageable bite-size improvements. So I'm not getting up 3 hours earlier and I'm going to do this. And then if you fail or are unable to do that the next day, then you beat yourself up about it because I wasn't able to do it. But if you said, like you said, something more manageable, like 30 minutes, and you're able to do it for 3 days or a whole week, then that's a huge win versus trying to bite off more than you can chew at that time.
Yep, absolutely.
So Kelly, I mean, you've led truly an incredible life. I mean, just everything you've accomplished as an athlete, making those pivots and transitions within your athletic career, and then also in your professional career in physical therapy and helping so many people, then becoming a contestant on the Titan Games to further that platform and to help more people and encourage more people and be that light and that role model for them looking forward, knowing, of course, that you're going to continue to achieve all those goals and inspire so many people. But I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, that's another good question. I think that I would like to be remembered for somebody who just attacks life head on, pursues things every day that they're passionate about, and really gives it 110%, whatever that means. Somebody who is kind and honest and works hard for everything that they've accomplished, and in doing so, hopefully inspires others around them to go after things that they love and pursue new goals and new avenues, to just really live the most, fulfilling and healthy, possible versions of our lives.
Thank you all for tuning in to today's installment of the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. To learn more about each of these Titan athletes, be sure to check out their information in the links in my show notes. Furthermore, to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective, be sure to subscribe to the Keep Moving Forward YouTube channel and follow along on social media, also available in the show notes. As the creator of the Titan Games, Mr. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson says, "Titans aren't born, they're made." And I hope today's story helped you realize all that you are capable of becoming if you put in that hard work and just keep moving forward.